Welcome to the Send More Offers Real Estate Show with Brandon Barnes, showing you how to do wholesaling deals consistently without having to go on seller appointments. Learn the key tips and strategies that Brandon's students use to find deeply discounted properties that are pennies on the dollar, all while avoiding wear and tear on their vehicle, body, and freedom. Whether you're looking for your first deal or your next deal, it's time to send more offers with your host, Brandon Barnes.
Hey, Mike, welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Brandon, good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this because, look, we interview on the Send More Offer Show a lot of different investors that are doing a bunch of different things. But I like that, as we were talking pre-show, you are a wholesaler's wholesaler, right? You're a real estate investor and you can flip, you can hold. You've had amazing success over just a short period of time since COVID. But, your strategy is to wholesale and, go direct to seller. And that's what people want to know. They want to know, how can I do more deals and then cherry pick my pipeline for a great portfolio? So super excited to get into this, man. What does business look like now? What's working for you? How are you getting these great, amazing wholesale deals?
Yeah. So my business right now is extremely different than it was a year ago. Before the market turned over, we were running a very traditional real estate wholesaling business of, we're locally focused. We focused a lot on getting face-to-face with sellers, building rapport, doing the typical process, right? The market that I'm in is Spokane, Washington. So Eastern Washington on the border with Idaho. And our market was insane in 2020, 2021, right? Like there are houses that I bought in 2018, 2019 that I did a cash out refinance for in 2021 that were like literally 2.5 times the value. Okay. So it just got silly, right? Yeah. And as the market started getting a little funny, we're trying to hedge our risk here locally. We recognized that stuff was starting to look weird. I think the biggest red flag, we had this 300 square foot cabin, quote unquote cabin, that really looked like a shed from Lowe's. Yeah. that we bought, right? And we bought it for like $100,000. We threw in some like plumbing, some flooring, and just some basic stuff, and we sold it for $300,000. Okay, and we were like, okay, this is getting kind of weird. Like, there's no way that this is sustainable. So we started looking at how to do this virtually, and fast forward to now, a year and a half after we made this decision to start pivoting, I have a team of 10 people. I have 4 sales guys, and we're currently active in 22 markets around the country.
Oh, wow.
And we've shifted to a completely virtual model. Our prospecting looks exactly the same. Our main prospecting is direct mail and SMS and online marketing in front of a heavy brand. So like we are very brand heavy. We have a professionally built website, strong brand presence, all that sort of stuff. But I think the main difference is because we are virtual, we're in so many markets, we focus more on kind of the low-hanging fruit as opposed to these really long, drawn-out relationship-based transactions. Yep.
Yeah, you have, each person has the opportunity to, go and play the numbers game and try to do a lot of deals, do high volume, right? Low-hanging fruit, or try to go deep and get bigger, juicier deals, or you got to build a lot of relationship and a lot of rapport. Going, the virtual model makes it to where, you're trying to do a bunch of deals at any given time. What was it that allowed you to go into these markets? I know a lot of people use PPC and online techniques to be able to cast a wider net. Are you just mailing a bunch of mail across the country, or is it a mix in these different markets?
Yeah, so it's honestly just mail and SMS in all these markets. I mean, we send right now, average month, $70,000 to $100,000 worth of mail. So we have a huge marketing budget, right? And like, honestly, it's the same stuff that you can learn about on YouTube, that you can, hear people talk about. We focus on absentee owners, people with publicly recorded financial distresses. So bankruptcies, liens, people with vacant properties, haven't paid their taxes, things like that. And we just mail that across a huge area. And then I think kind of the key is, like I said, the heavy brand that we drive our business with, that goes a lot farther than people think. So we kind of went the extra mile, and we have like a professional website, professional brand. We work on getting testimonials. You work on doing all these different things. And then once people get our outreach, right? They get our SMS, they get our direct mail. We push them to websites, right? Like to our website. And then they start getting retargeted with these different campaigns, these different kinds of like Google retargeting, social media retargeting that provide value as well as advertising our services, right? So, someone that's in Jackson, Mississippi, which is somewhere that we work, right? They get our mail, they go on to our website, they check us out, they decide they don't want to work with us. But for the next 3 months, they're starting to see us on their YouTube videos they watch, on their recipe websites they look at, on the Fox News articles that they read, right? And it's not just like, hey, this is our brand, but it is also like, hey, would you like to check out this article about how to get out of foreclosure? Are you dealing with a divorce? Here's an article about, how that affects your house. And so there's these little things that get people to engage with our brand. And all of a sudden we're an authority as well as someone that's trying to buy their house. Okay. So we're really focusing on trying to solve their problem as opposed to, just like, hey, you should choose us because we exist, which is what a lot of wholesalers try to do.
Right. No, that's super smart. There's a few ways I want to take this, but one of the paths is the brand, right? Do you have just a really great name? Tell us a little bit about the brand and how are you marketing kind of that brand targeted to the specific city? So if you're sending mail to Jackson, Mississippi, does that mailer have a Jackson local website or does everything come back to the home base?
Yeah. So the website that we have, you can look it up if you want. It's just Backyard Home Buyers. It's our main company, right? So it's very location. Yeah, thanks. It's very location neutral, right? So it works pretty much everywhere. And then on top of that, how it works with each of the different markets is we just build like basically an individual page for each market. So for example, Jackson, Mississippi is backyardhomebuyers.com/Jackson. So it still goes there. And then you go to that page and it has like a cover photo that's relevant to the market. It has, like verbiage on there that's specific to the market. When they go and look at it, it has like a phone number that's specific to the market. So it still gives kind of that local presence without having to have 20 different URLs out there, which gets more complicated.
Yeah. And I'm sure that helps with the SEO. So the search engine optimization, just like if you were in one city, one market, because, if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, Metro Atlanta, most folks that have a website know to have different pages for each city around the metropolitan. So that's super smart. And I'm sure that drives a lot of organic traffic to you. And I love the name Backyard Home Buyers, specifically speaking about kind of doing deals in those targeted markets. One question that comes to mind is, how are you choosing? Because honestly, you are a virtual wholesaler at this point. As I was going to ask you about kind of getting belly to belly, speaking to a seller, going on an appointment versus virtual. But it sounds like if everything's virtual and you guys are in a lot of different cities, how are you first targeting the best cities to go to?
Yeah. So I'm happy to talk about being face-to-face too. We did about 150 transactions traditionally before we started this model. But how we're picking the virtual markets, there's a couple different ways that we do it, right? So the first thing that we do is we honestly focus on finding key buyers first. So how we launch in pretty much every market is we find a key individual that we're going to work with that we know is going to be able to help with disposition, maybe even be an end buyer themselves. They're going to be able to help with our due diligence and all that sort of stuff. So when you're doing virtual, that's honestly kind of the biggest challenge is how do I actually verify the property condition like the seller says? So we solve that and say like, cool, we found someone that's there we're going to work with directly. We establish a JV with them. And that kind of gives us
social media.
Yeah, social media. Exactly. Through Facebook, through personal connections. We've even started up in new markets because we'll have like a partner that we're working with that they're like, hey, you should work with my friend Clay and this market. And we say, sweet, let's do a market analysis, see if it makes sense.
Okay.
And then so that's kind of how we initially start looking at the general areas. And then when, let's say we have someone we're going to work with that's in Memphis or, where Nashville is, are all markets that we operate in, right? What we do is instead of focusing on the city core, right? We try to find the pocket communities that are 30 to 45 minutes outside of city cores, and we focus on those. And we have found that you can do that pretty much all over the country. And you still give the people that are interested in Memphis but it's 45 minutes outside the area. And if there's local flippers there, they don't care if it's a good deal. Like they're more than happy to drive 45 minutes out to the project if they're going to be making twice as much as they are on the really tight deals that they're getting in Memphis proper.
Right.
So we do that all over the country, right? So I say that we're in Jackson. We're actually in other towns like in Madison County around there, right? Or like we're doing some stuff in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're focusing on like some of the various cities that are, commutable distance,
right,
but they're not like the hot spot that everyone thinks of when you go there.
Yeah. No, that's been great even for me and my business is kind of working all of the counties that touch the primary counties. Like in Atlanta, it's the big five, right? So all the counties that touch that are fair game. And, if you got a good buyers list for that city, then you're most likely going to have buyers that'll go out into the suburbs because that's where some of the better deals are, especially post-COVID, once people started kind of getting away from city centers. Look, I don't want to jam you up by having you tell me like your best favorite markets because I know I have another friend, Lauren Hardy, that told everybody her favorite market and then they got sworn with wholesalers. But just in general, maybe top few states that you think are really interesting right now.
I mean, the southern states are by behold the best ones right now. You can pick any large metro area in any of the southern states and do very, very well. Of all the places that we are, all of our best markets are down in the southern states from Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee. We're starting up in South Carolina here very soon.
Georgia?
Georgia. Yep. We're actually doing some stuff down in Georgia.
Love it.
Not in Atlanta, but yeah, I mean, the southern markets is just, it's so easy to find buyers. And then also too, just the nature of the financial background that's going on there. There is a lot of distressed sellers that exist.
For sure.
So there's a huge amount of opportunity.
For sure. You mentioned market analysis, right? So if somebody's listening and say, hey, I want to go into one of my next virtual markets. I got a good buddy. I got a good buyer, but I want to make sure that this is the right one. Tell me a little bit about the market analysis that you guys do to say, hey, this is one market that we should dig into.
Yeah. So the main things that we look for outside of the partner, making sure that they're able to get stuff done, is we look for basically like the total growth of the area, right? Like, is it somewhere that's growing? Is it somewhere that's waning? And it doesn't matter if it's kind of flatlined. We just don't want places that people are like doing a max exodus from, right? Because sometimes, you get into these small towns and, these smaller towns that are within spitting distance of these big cities. And you realize that that town's dying at an incredibly rapid rate because something has happened there, especially in the Midwest. You have like
plant shut down.
Yeah, you got the plant shut down, right? Or you have like a train crash that like poisons all the water. Things like that are bad, right? And so you try to get away from that. That's a big thing that we look for. And then outside of that too, because we are so stretched across all these different markets, we pull sample data. And realistically, what we look for is 10 to 12,000 prospects that fit our requirement of being on some sort of niche list, right? So bankruptcy, liens, vacant, like tax delinquencies, those are our main ones that we really like. And then absentee owners. And we want to get 10 to 12,000 concrete leads that fit that. We also look for people that have 5+ years of ownership. They have decent equity. And if we can get that core list, because in each market we spend $5,000 to $7,000 per market, right? We know that we can get deals done in that range. And because our business model isn't trying to like scale these individual markets or to try and like squeeze all the juice out of it, but get that low hanging fruit. If we can get like that core marketing population, we just go for it. And because we're distributed across so many different places, if one market isn't working, we just say, cool, we'll just pop out of that one. We'll take the marketing budget, we'll go over and find somewhere else. And it allows us to, run business as usual.
Love it. I know you mentioned a few other marketing channels, right? So the direct mail, the online presence, the retargeting, as texting or calling, is that working? I know you've done it in the past, but do you also kind of supplement the marketing, the direct mail with some of these other strategies?
Yeah, so we do SMS, especially to the wider lists that don't have as many proven motivations. So, people that have high equity, absentee lists, things like that. So for example, let's say we get our 12,000 core people that we're going to target, right? We'll spend 5,000 to 6,000 mailers on there because the mails that we send are usually higher quality. They're like in envelopes. They're, the handwritten ones that you see. Those get a pretty good response rate. So we'll spend $5,000 to $6,000 worth of those. And then the rest of the list we'll reach out to with SMS. And that does a couple of things. So first off, people have different engagement styles, right? Sellers want to engage with you in different ways. I prefer SMS over calling because SMS is similar to mail in the way that they can respond on their time, right? Whereas cold calling, you're kind of invading their day. Someone can receive a text message and then respond to it 2 hours later if they want to. Right. So it's just less invasive. And then also too, with the SMS, depending on the people, you can just have a little bit more of a conversation versus cold calling where people are always kind of trying to get off the phone. I mean, it's 2023, man. People don't want to talk on the phone if they don't have to.
Right.
So where SMS, people are just much more accustomed to that. And it's a great way to get additional lead flow that's pretty cheap. Out of our deals, 87% of our deals that we close come from direct mail. But the SMS is just so cheap per touch that we just keep it operating because, it makes us extra money every year. So
good stuff. That's awesome. And then, as far as data, right? Data in different markets, there's these national data providers, but oftentimes, like I've always, been taught and teach others, whatever you can get from the county and direct, do that. Well, if you're in a bunch of different markets across the country, do you have a team that's doing just that and trying to get data from the county level? Or is this such low-hanging fruit that you can just grab one of these national providers to give you good data on these records?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And so right now with what we're doing, we're just pursuing the low-hanging fruit and we just pull off the large providers, right? But back when I was focused just here in Spokane, we had a whole team of VAs that would go and manually scrape the court records and the county records. And we had to apply for a license to be able to get all this stuff. And, we had a whole process that we did. We had a team of people that literally just went and manually looked for the good data. And honestly, that was a reason that we were able to do very well in Spokane, which was a highly competitive market. But with where we're at right now, with the low-hanging fruit, we just don't do that anymore because it just isn't quite the same bang for our buck.
Love it. Before we pivot to some other exit strategies, I'm just wondering, with this business process, the process that you guys are following in a bunch of different markets, low-hanging fruit, if you were starting from scratch today and you couldn't technically, jump out there into multiple different markets, would you start over with the same path that you did where you went deep in your city and then went broad? Or would you immediately, do you think that there's enough low-hanging fruit that you would maybe identify, one primary juicy market and then try to just expand this virtual process?
Yeah, so we do some coaching on this and I talk to a lot of people on Instagram and they always ask me the same question. And pretty much all the time, I recommend that people start in their local markets and they get started being face-to-face with sellers, doing deep dives on each individual opportunity, because that's how you learn the real estate process and especially the off-market transaction process. There's so many little, nuances and quirks and weird stuff that comes up that if you're 1,000 miles away from that person, you're not going to be able to figure out quite the same as if you're sitting in their living room with them and you're helping them solve whatever the problem is. That's a huge piece of it, is the education, but also too, the way that we run, it is expensive, right? Because we've been successful in the past, we have the ability to do that scale. And it is also more of a sales and system focused business, as opposed to the face-to-face can be much more like a real estate business where you can identify opportunities and you can build those relationships. And realistically, most people don't have the background or the expertise to run the system and sales business like we do. Right. It needs to start with the relationship business. And then when you get good at that, you can start to learn how to scale it. But I meet a lot of people that are I live in Seattle, I live in the Bay Area. There's no way I could ever find deals here. It's too competitive. And it's just well, find areas that are close by that you can still go and do the manual touch. Because if you're completely green and you're I'm now going to go across the country to Jacksonville, Florida and try to compete with everyone who's on the ground there, and I've never done this before, you will lose. Every single time you will lose, right? So
that makes a lot of sense. Good stuff. I love it. And you've done amazing with this strategy. And, I'm curious, you're at a point where you can, wholesale whatever you want, but you can also take some of these other strategies. I kind of want to deep dive that, but just to give people a sense of this scale of this operation, how many deals are you guys trying to push through each month? What's your target amongst all the different markets? And, maybe an average, and I'm sure it varies, but like an average deal size for these deals.
Yeah. So we're typically doing 25 to 35 per month right now. Deal size will range from 5,000 in some of the cheaper markets to 23,000 in some of the more expensive markets. Right.
Give you an air holding for that. That's amazing, man. To just be cranking out that much, right, in different markets around the country. I know you were, in a minute, cut you off. I know you were doing some cities where the deal size is less. I'm sure there's some other ones that is much larger though, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we have, some cities where our average is about 23,000, 24,000 per. And then some cities we get even larger on an occasional basis, right? The largest deal we've ever done was a $125,000 assignment fee, and it was a $350,000 house, which just happened to be a very distressed situation. So, yeah.
Love it. Yeah. So, when you guys have so many exit strategies at your fingertips, right? And I know that you want to continue to collect keys and collect doors for your rental properties. Like, how are you deciding? What does it take to decide, hey, we're going to wholesale this, we're going to hold that, we're going to flip this? Like, what's that process look like?
Yeah. So we don't really do any flips anymore. We went through a phase, we were locally here, where we were flipping a lot of deals, especially in, late 2020 and 2021, where the market was just insane. I mean, we could have wholesaled back then, but we were buying stuff, throwing carpet into it, doing super basic touch-ups and then selling it for $30,000 of our asking price, right? So we would do that all day. And then as the market started to turn and we sold that cabin, like I talked about, that was actually one of the last flips that we did. So we're like, okay, we've been riding our luck here. We need to move on from that. So back then when we were doing flips, what we would look for is, simple rehabs, desirable neighborhoods, and starter home price points. That's the biggest thing that we look for is starter home price points, right? Because it's easy to exit from that. There's a lot of buyers. When it comes to our rentals, we focus mostly on small multifamily. So 2 to 4 units. The largest thing we own is an 8 unit, just because the cash flow is so much higher versus single family homes. For the single family homes, we do own a couple. Typically, their single family homes that I own are all here in Washington, and the ones that we choose to buy, they're larger rancher style single family homes. So we have an arrangement with the state here where we provide homes for disabled adults. And so they basically fit their criteria. They pay premium rent, and it's a very specific type of house that we're looking for that. But because of what the state pays, it makes it worthwhile for us to hold those single families.
Love it. But I'm sure that there's a big team, there's a large team. And so it makes sense because you guys can say, hey, if it's small multifamily or if it's a specific type of house, all right, let's look at it a little deeper. But when you're managing this team and the scale of this operation, right, do you have, layers in place? Is there an ops manager that oversees everything? Or do you trust your acquisitions manager or your dispo manager? How does that look just from an internal team perspective?
Yeah. So this is a big thing that we're trying to conquer this year because we've grown incredibly fast. So we were in, 5 virtual markets at the end of 2022. Now we're in, 22, right? And so I have 4 acquisition managers. They all work several markets. I'm working on bringing a senior acquisition team lead to help scale that and build it out. On the transaction side and the data side, we utilize VAs very heavily. So, we have a data analyst VA, we have several lead manager VAs. My business partner is managing the transaction side right now, because that's a big thing as you start to scale that gets very complicated is the transaction coordination process. When you have, 27 deals in escrow in 20 different markets with 23 different title and escrow companies, right? It gets really weird really fast. So we're working on bringing in a pro to keep that organized. Yeah, that's really it, I guess. And then on the podcast team itself, we have 4 team members that do our content and do our editing and do all that sort of stuff. So all in all, I got a team of 14 people across everything.
Good stuff. And the last one on this is, do you ever consider creative finance type deal subject to, have you just trained each of the acquisition managers to recognize those and then there's a senior person kind of taking them down, or do you even touch those or just kind of stay focused on the cash transactions?
Yeah, we touch those a lot, especially in cheaper markets. Seller financing is incredibly huge. So like we've done stuff in Detroit like this, or, Memphis or these other places in Tennessee, right? That are just super common investor markets anyway. But a lot of these places, houses were $15,000 like 6 years ago. So you have these people that went in there and just bought tons of houses for cash, and the houses are heavily distressed to the point that, a lot of lenders are like, I'm not going to give you a hard money loan for this $40,000 house that's beat to hell. So instead, we negotiate seller financing ton with those people. It's a very easy conversation to have. And like even on large portfolios too. So like we are negotiating right now, which I think we actually got assigned around yesterday, 28 unit portfolio outside of Memphis at 3% interest, right? With 100% seller financing. And we're paying basically retail for it, but no money down, right? The payment's absurdly low. The cash was going to be high. And the guy's like ready to retire. So he just wants to walk away from it. But there are people like that all over the place. And then when it comes to the higher price point markets, we are starting right now, especially with places like Spokane, to see a huge number of sub-twos because there are people that got FHA loans or VA loans on these properties, a year and a half ago. They're now underwater on the properties, right? Because the markets have corrected 10, 15% in a lot of these places. And so we literally can't do a cash purchase, even though they're getting divorced, even though they're filing bankruptcy, those things that happen to people. So subject to has been a big part of our plan over the last year.
Yeah. But deep dive that a bit. Like, how did you go? Did you say, hey, this is part of what we do. This is what you look for. Did you, kind of work with the acquisition managers and say, hey, this is how you identify it? Or did you just give them some sort of training? Like, how do you actually get an AM to be able to tackle those types of deals? Because they're not the same as, hey, just look at the numbers and create a spread.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I do is I leverage the experts. I have our acquisition managers watching Pace Morby videos. I have them watching financing videos. Like, I understand the gist of it, but I'm not going to be able to coach as good as those guys are. So like in our training, I literally have these links to all these YouTube videos created by other people that just teach them how to do what we need them to do. It works out great.
Love it. Good stuff. Man, well, this has been great. I don't know if you have interesting deal or a crazy deal that you kind of want to break down, because I'm sure you have a bunch of stories. Anything comes to mind?
Oh, dude, I got, you name it. But especially when we were on the ground here in Spokane, dude, we got into so many weird things. I can talk about how we had a seller get abducted from a closing. That's a good one.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I can talk, if you want to hear that one. Yeah, I have another one where a landlord and a tenant got into a fist fight at the house, but they were both senior age women.
Oh my.
That's a great one. So the guy that got abducted though, that was a crazy one. So it was like the worst part of town here in Spokane. It's like this kind of mobile home neighborhood that's just drug haven, right? And it was really, really dicey. And the guy we had been talking to for, a year at this point, he would call in, kept sending mail. He would half the time he would tell our people to F off and get super angry. Half the time he'd be super cordial, probably on drugs, things like that. Anyway, he called us one time and he's like, hey, I'm getting clean. He was super apologetic about the situation that had gone on. He's like, I need to get out of this situation, facing tax foreclosure, and I need to sell my mobile. Cool. Sounds great. Go and meet with him. And, we'd been out to this house a couple times. Anyways, since he'd gotten clean, we show up at this house and there was a community of people that had essentially set up like a camp and potential meth lab in his garage for his mobile home that were extremely confrontational when my team got out there, right? And they were super aggressive, super nasty about it, right? And so there was this whole conflict that went on the entire time. So what we had to do, because my guys didn't want to go to the house anymore, which makes sense. They want them to go there anyway.
Right.
Get shanked or shot or something. So what we did was we started working with the neighbor who was a super old guy that's like, I live in this crappy area. I just want it to be better. And we essentially made him like a mole. And so what he would do is we would communicate with him and he would go and leave notes for the seller and then walk back across and was doing this whole thing. And this went on for months. Anyway, we end up having the neighbor, our mole, get the contract signed. Okay. And we're negotiating the deal because at this point, the guy doesn't have a phone anymore. So we can't talk to escrow. So we're having all the mail get sent to the neighbor for the escrow documents. And then he's helping get it signed, all this stuff. So, this thing goes on for a while. We get to closing. We agree to purchase price, right? $40,000. We have it assigned for $55,000. We get to closing and The seller is unable to get to the title and escrow company because this was during COVID. So it was like all closed. So we had to do stuff mobile. And so we sent a mobile notary, okay? But he can't go to the house of the seller because it's weird. So he goes to the neighbor's house, okay? And of course, the mobile notary shows up in a, suit, decent car, looks professional, doing the whole thing, rolls up. And then Jeff, the seller, comes walking across to go and sign docs. Well, the meth heads are like, whoa, we know what's going on here. We know that if this house sells, we're going to get kicked out. Okay. So our guy is there, making sure that the seller was sober to do docs and everything was still cool. So it's all going fine. Lo and behold, the guys come in, okay, from across the way, kick in the door, armed, drag the seller out of the signing, okay, throw him into this beat up pickup truck and just take him away. And they just leave. And my guys, it was actually one of my guys that was there. It was his first day on the job. Not even kidding.
Oh my!
He was like, what is going on here? Right? And he was like, is this supposed to happen? I'm like, no, that's not good. And anyway, the seller was gone for 2 weeks. Nobody saw him. We could never get it figured out. And then, it took us 2 weeks to find him, get it all figured out again. I was able to go through. But it was a crazy, crazy transaction. It was the first time.
That is wild. Do you know if he ended up signing back at the property, or did you guys go find him somewhere else and just stay away from
the
original house?
Yes, we were able to get him out of the area for signing the next time because stuff started to open up a little bit. And so it just made it more doable. I mean, it was the perfect combination of the COVID circumstance plus just the situation with the seller, plus also too, being in Washington State, right? We're a blue state. So there are professional squatters here. They know how to take advantage of the system. And they know that one of the only ways that they can get evicted in that situation is if there's a transfer of title, there's a new owner. Then you can evict them very easily because essentially their squatters' rights are eliminated. Yeah. So they will do everything they can to make sure that there is no sale of that property.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you guys made it out. And I'm glad you guys were able to make that a nice $15K deal. Bless the buyer that got it. Hopefully he got the folks out of the house, out of the way, so he could turn it into a good investment. That's a good one, man. Well, look, I appreciate it, but look, I cannot let you go without putting you through the lightning round. Are you ready for that?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Cool. So I have a series of rapid fire questions for you. You don't know the question. I don't know your answer. So just say the very first thing that comes to your mind. What's one book that's been instrumental to your growth as a real estate investor?
The 4-Hour Work Week.
Great one. Cool. If you could have drinks or coffee with any one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
So my immediate answer is The Rock. But I feel like that's a cop-out answer because everyone's going to say.
No, I actually haven't had that as an answer yet. I think that's in 200 plus episodes. I think
really?
That's a good one. Yeah, I think that's a really good one. I actually just watched an interview with him. But I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but is there, why The Rock? The rest of or business?
I mean, I really respect his business, sort of presence that he's built amongst being, going from a wrestler, which is kind of like a clown show as a celebrity, right? To being a huge movie star, to owning very successful businesses. I put a lot of respect for that. Yep. Plus also too, I'm a workout junkie. He's a workout junkie and I really enjoy his tequila. So
it is, right?
Yeah.
He's a quarter away from $1 billion man. That's amazing.
It's super crazy. Yeah.
It is. Good stuff. What is your best advice for someone looking to do their very first virtual wholesale deal?
Yeah. So be consistent with whatever marketing type you choose and, be patient and consistent with it. That's the biggest area where most people mess up is they try something for a month and they're not printing money. So they try to jump around and you got to give something 90 to 120 days of consistency before you back up.
There you go. Perfect. What's one mistake on a deal or business in general that if you had a do-over, you would take that do-over?
Yeah. So when you're getting started in this business, this is a mistake that I made very heavily. You're working with these sellers, not getting everything in writing and being too nice with people has bitten us before, especially if it's someone that needs to move out of the house or there's arrangements outside of the transaction need to take place. You need to make sure that you get everything in writing, and not only that it's in writing, but it's something that's actually enforceable. Because that's something else too, is they'll think, oh, I'm going to write up a Word document and get them to sign it. It's like, well, 95% of the time, whatever you're trying to do isn't actually enforceable. So even though they signed it, it doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. What is the financial goal that you guys have set for your wholesale business for this calendar year?
Yeah. So one of our goals is we're hoping that this year can be the first year that both my business partner and I can personally take 7 figures out of the business. So we've done that. We did that in 2021, but a lot of that was also tied to cash out refinances on properties that we owned. So it wasn't like true revenue profit. So our goal is to be profitable enough that we can each take 7 figures in straight profit that isn't tied to just like the luck of the market.
That's amazing. I love it. Give me your answer to what you would do if you woke up tomorrow with $500 million deposited into your account overnight. What's the first thing that you would go out and purchase with that newfound money?
Probably a jet, I'm being honest. There's a super vain answer. That's like my...
that's the perfect one.
Yeah, that's like my one bougie thing. Like I'm not a super flashy person. I'm not into cars, stuff like that, but I love to travel. And, if I could have one like ultra rich perk, if I didn't have to go to the airport and like do the whole security thing and I could just go and, hop on my jet and go to Europe or go to wherever I want to go, like that would $500 million. I'm pretty sure I could afford it at that point. So.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of people that, talk about giving away and stuff, like the question is specifically like, what's the one thing that you would go out and kind of one of those vanity purchases? Mine definitely, and I don't think I've said this on air, it would be a jet as well. Get a lot of time back, get a lot of travel in. That's a great one. Last one for you. What's the best piece of advice for the person that's listening right now that wants to scale their business into something amazing like that like you've done?
Yeah. So if you're looking to scale, the number one thing you need to do is get out of your own way and look to bring on people for the stuff that is taking up your time. Leverage in terms of other people and staff has been a game changer for us. And also too, a big thing with that is be honest about the stuff that you're good at, right? And the stuff that you enjoy, and outsource the things that you're bad at before the things that you dislike, right? Because unfortunately, the truth is sometimes you're good at the stuff that you hate, but you got to kind of deal with that, while you figure out how to make money. And then once you make money, you can outsource that stuff. But everyone always tries to get rid of the hard things first, but sometimes that's not the best way to do it.
Love it. Good stuff, man. Well, look, this has been an amazing episode. And we've really detailed a lot here, focusing on the low-hanging fruit in multiple markets, how to do, how to analyze the data to decide what's a good market. And then also, you gave us some great tips on, going after some of the creative deals, managing a big team, and, some of your favorite marketing channels. So it was an amazing episode, but I want you to let folks know where they can check you out, where they can follow you, anywhere else they can learn anything else that you're doing in your business and how you're sharing and giving.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my own podcast. It's called the Collecting Keys Podcast. You can find it anywhere that you listen to your shows. It is a, mostly business focused podcast. We do 3 episodes a week. On Mondays, we do interviews. And then on Wednesdays, we do what's called the Mike and Dan Show, which is me and my business partner talking about our business systems, stuff that's working for us. And then honestly, just talking rubbish about stuff that goes on too, to get a little bit of banter in there. And then on Friday, we will do a focused monologue episode that's usually answering a question from a listener. So, we do some deep dives on some topics there. So that's the easiest way to hear more about what I'm doing is the Collecting Keys Podcast. If you want to reach out to me, the easiest way is on Instagram, just at Mike_invests. I've really been working on doing more Instagram content this year. I'm always happy to chat with people. So don't be afraid to shoot me a DM on there. And yeah, that's the best place to find me.
Good stuff. I love it. Definitely will be checking it out. And are you doing some coaching? I think I saw that. Is there a website that they can check that out?
Yeah. So yeah, we do have a group coaching program that we run, mostly through our podcast. The focus is on building an off-market marketing and sales system that's scalable. So it's not specifically wholesale or flipping or anything like that, but we teach how to find deals. And then a lot of it is focused on how to, identify the opportunities as they come through. So if you go to collectingkeyspodcast.com, you can get some information on that. You can also hit me up on Instagram and I'd be happy to just set up a call and chat about it. And what that looks like is we have like a video course and then we do 2 times a week group calls. And, we have a Slack channel that everyone's in. And our goal with that too, everyone always asks, we're not trying to make like a huge group. It's relatively selective. We're looking for people that are wanting to scale and do big things. So we're trying to keep it really high caliber. So if you've been in groups before and you're like, 80% of these people aren't doing anything, that's the opposite of what we're going for. We want it to be 80% of the people are crushing it, right? So,
love it. Good stuff. Well, man, I appreciate it, Mike. And guys, while you're at it, head over to sendmoreoffers.com. There's nothing for sale there, just a bunch of great information from all of these amazing speakers and interviewees. And you can book a call with me. If you're doing deals in Atlanta, I'd love to work with you. Anything that I can share as far as my resources go, just reach out to me. I would love to help you out along the way at sendmoreoffers.com. Mike, this has been great. I'm going to keep following along with your journey, man, and check out the podcast. Keep crushing it. And I can't wait to hear from you and see how things are rolling.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it, man.
Good stuff. Guys, as always, send more offers, do more deals. Till next time. Peace.
That's all for this episode of the Send More Offers Real Estate Show with Brandon Barnes. But we know you're craving more knowledge to get yourself ready for that next deal. To schedule a call with Brandon to learn more about how to do deals consistently without seller appointments in a repeatable way, be sure to visit us at sendmoreoffers.com. And be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Send More Offers Real Estate Show.